Hello, and welcome to the Massive Meter Bridge 2.0 webinar. We're going to be looking at several of the different Evergreen Audio Design Group products, including the Massive Meter Bridge, the iOS version of the Massive Meter Bridge, the Massive Meter, and the Massive Meter Pro. I'm Bob Brown, the founder and software architect of the system, and we're going to walk through a lot of the new features and show you how to get set up quickly, look at some of the other cool things about the system. The Massive Meter Bridge 2.0 was released this past winter. You can check it out at evergreenaudiodesignGroup.com/products. One of the things that came with the new 2.0 version was new options for purchasing the software. So let's take a quick look at the products that are available as part of the 2.0 release. There are new ways of purchasing. You can independently purchase each plugin and the Massive Meter Bridge, and you can also buy them as a suite. There's the Massive Meter plugin, which is the standard plugin that supports the Pro Tools native host-based processing. There is also a new plugin called the Massive Meter Pro, which supports the Pro Tools HDX DSP system. And of course, there is the Massive Meter Bridge desktop application. As part of 2.0, there's also a companion iOS application for the Massive Meter Bridge. It brings the same functionality and power of the Massive Meter Bridge desktop application to the iOS on an iPad hardware device. You can still purchase the bundles, the suites, the Pro post-production metering suite, which includes one Massive Meter Bridge license and 4 licenses for the Massive Meter plugin. And you can also purchase the Pro version, which is the post-production metering suite Pro, includes 1 license for the Massive Meter Bridge and 4 licenses for the Massive Meter Pro plugin for Pro Tools HDX DSP support. So let's take a look at our setup here. We've got a Pro Tools running a bunch of the Massive Meter Pros, and this is actually a core audio-based system. It's not a Pro Tools HDX system, so we're running these as native plugins. So they'll run native or they'll run on the HDX DSP platform. So that's up here on the top. I've got a session with quite a few different tracks. On the bottom here, I've got my Massive Meter Bridge. And then just to kind of explain a couple of the other things that you can't see that are off screen, I have another Pro Tools system called the Music System, and it's got a bunch of 5.1 tracks on it, off on a separate MacBook Pro. And then in front of me, I've got an iPad running the Massive Meter Bridge on iOS. And so you can run multiple copies of the bridge. Doesn't have to be on the same computer. It could be on a different computer. And basically, the bridge will find any of the plugins out there that are hosted either on a Pro Tools system or on a VST3 host. And you can see here I've got a VST3 host also running. So I've got basically 3 DAWs, and then I've got my microphone, my core audio microphone on my Apple Cinema display. We'll get into these all a little bit more detail as we move along. But that's the basics. We've got a Pro Tools rig here on this same computer with the Massive Meter Bridge, another Pro Tools rig on a separate computer. We've got a VST3 host running on the same computer, and then our core audio. So let's check out some basic setup here. So when you run Pro Tools, like I said, the Massive Meter or the Massive Meter Pro can both run as native plugins. The Pro can run in the Pro Tools HDX DSP system, and you use it like any other plugin. You just instantiate it anywhere in your signal chain. So when you click on the insert, you'll see the plugin under the sound field. And there's my Massive Meter 7.1 and my Massive Meter Pro 7.1. Both of them are installed, or it's under the company name of EADG. So support all the channel widths of Pro Tools today, so mono all the way up to, I think it's Ampersonic 7, so 64 channels wide, all the different versions in between. First thing you do is instantiate plugins. You put them on whatever tracks at whatever point in the signal chain that you want to meter, and then you launch the Massive Meter Bridge application, and we're just going to get started. We're going to, from a clean slate, we're going to create a new configuration. And it'll show you all the devices that it sees. It sees my main effects system, which is the Pro Tools running there. We see the music system that's running on the other computer. We see the VST3 host, and we see our core audio display. And so now we've connected. It found all the different plugins on each of the systems, and we'll just rearrange it a little bit, and we're pretty much back to where we began. We can save this, close the system and reopen it up. It'll find all the systems out there and all the meters that are available and display them for you. So there's two types of file formats in the massive meter bridge application. There's what's called a configuration, and there's what's called a template. They're used for slightly different use cases. The easiest one to use is the configuration. You find that under the file new configuration. So configuration, basically what it does is it remembers each of the Pro Tools systems or other VST systems out there or core audio devices you connected to. And so it just remembers that, hey, there's a device out there and I'm going to save that device information so that the next time I'm open, I'm going to connect to that device and I'm going to find all the plugins that are in it and I'm going to display them. So it saves a minimal amount of information to the file and it reconnects. And when you're using a configuration, if you ever instantiate a plugin or deinstantiate a plugin, it will automatically show in the bridge. A template is a little more sophisticated, saves a little bit more data, and they're really well matched for large facilities that tend to work with Pro Tools templates. So if you have a Pro Tools session that you always use for mixing or mastering, whether it's sound effects or dialogue or music, and you always have the same layout, you always run the same plugins, you probably want to use a massive meter bridge template to complement that. And we'll dig into the details of the template in just a second. If you're going to be using a template, the easiest way to get started is open up your template and then create a configuration in Pro Tools, and then under the file menu, there is a save as template. And so what this does is it takes all of the information that's set up in your Pro Tools session, so all of the order of the meters, the names of the meters, and the formats of the meters, and it saves it to the template file. And the way templates work is it matches the meters that are saved in the template file to the meters that it finds, and it matches it based on pretty much three criteria. So it'll find the system based off the system name. It'll then match the plugins based off of the plugin meter name, and match based off of the format. So all three of those things have to kind of match up, and then the meters will be linked together. In the plugin, if you click on the little gear icon in the upper right-hand corner, it will reveal all the settings that you can use. And the very first setting is the system name, and this is saved in a system, user system preferences. I happen to call this one FX. And then you can also have a custom track name, or it will inherit, it'll find out the name of the plugin and it'll use that. So the name of the track, and it'll use that. So this track was called background, so it came up as background. And if we want to add some extra characters there, it'll rename it to background XXX. And then if we delete the whole name, it'll revert back to the original track name. And so the system name here, FX, and then the track name background, that's what shows up in the massive meter bridge here under the system name right there, and then the track name right there for background. And that's how templates match information. So it has to find the system name, track name, and then the channel format. So depending on what you're doing and what workflow you're working in, if you want to have all the meters automatically discovered, configurations are the easiest way to do that. If you want to get in a more advanced system, you can use the templates. So like I said, you create a configuration file, and then you do a save as template. And then if you want to tweak things even more, setup menu, you'll see there's a new menu item called Manage Template. And Manage Template allows you to basically, rename the system, add meters, change the formats. And so this basically pulled these all from the configuration, and we can change our format, we can change our meter name, we can remove and delete, and we can also tell it to include the core audio device. So way to get in and kind of tweak out the individual elements, the individual systems and meters for your template. Okay, so let's start looking at some of the different features in the massive meters and the massive meter bridge. One of the big things that you can do is you can do tons of configuration. And most of the preferences that are available in the plugin is also available in the bridge, and then there are a few specific ones for the plugin and the bridge. So let's take a look at some of the different settings. So we already talked a little bit about the system name, and then the custom track or custom meter name. For both the massive meter and the massive meter bridge, you can change the network interface. So you can pick any all, and that basically says, hey, I'm going to look at any of the Ethernet cards that are on your system or your Wi-Fi. And if you click on that, it will show all the ones it will find. So it found this IP address, and this is a hardwired Ethernet address. If you're running the massive meter bridge and, say, Pro Tools on the same machine, you can also use what's called localhost, and that'll keep all the network traffic on that same computer and it won't go out over your network. Defaults to any all. Same settings are available in the massive meter bridge. It's definitely recommended that you use hardwired Ethernet for best performance, but it does run over a Wi-Fi network if you want. In something specific to the Massive Meter plugin and Massive Meter Pro plugin is a meter delay. And so if you have a situation where you can't use the Pro Tools delay compensation or another DAW's delay compensation system, you can type in additional samples of delay here. And what this will do is actually delay the meter data so that you can kind of synchronize things up if there's issues with where you're inserting the plugin on the signal chain, or if there's some network latency, you can adjust the meter delay there, and you can kind of align the different systems in the meter bridge. A lot of different options down here. These are available both in the bridge and the plugin. We can do segmented style. We can show the meter name. We can show the signal present indicator, which is the one on the bottom here. We can change the display of the meter labels from the top to the bottom. So we'll make a few changes here. So I'm going to turn off. We'll switch over to segmented view. We'll turn off the signal present indicator, and then we will change, say, label on top. And now we've got label on the bottom. We've got our individual meter labels here up at the top, and we're now in segmented view. You can also do things such as changing the meter type. We've got quite a few different meter types, from instant, peak, RMS, linear, D-style, which is similar to a Duro style meter, K-style metering, digital VU, and PPM digital. A lot of different tweaks you can make. You can change the peak hold and the clip indicator time. So you can tell it to hold for infinite. You can tell it to hold until the next play start. So it's really helpful if you want to kind of freeze the peaks or the clips of your meter and you want to clear them on the next record pass or next play pass. You use that until next play start, and it'll freeze your peaks. You can look at them if you need to make any changes, and then when you hit play again, it'll reset those. So a lot of different settings there that we can change. You can also change the tick mark increments, and so right now they're set up for every other. We can show all of them, 5s, 10s. We can do a couple different specific layouts here. And then if you're in segmented view, you can change the segment size from 1 dB to 2 dB to 4 dB. And then of course we can make color changes to our meters, so you can color code all of your meters. One of the other things that you can do in the settings, both in the massive meter and massive meter bridge, is what is called a preset. And so there's several handy presets, and these are somewhat modeled on some of the Pro Tools presets. So if you want to do peak, you can select the preset of peak, and what that does is it basically sets a whole bunch of different settings down here, including the hold time, the tick marks, and then the color, and you end up looking like a peak meter in Pro Tools. So just a quick way of jumping between the different settings. One of the really cool things you can do in the massive meter bridge, of course, is you can change the size from about 400 by 400 pixels, and you can bring that all the way up to fill up as much of the screen as you want. The same is true on the massive meter bridge. It supports full screen. You can do a full view here. We can put it in full screen mode, and we can also shrink it down just about as far as you want, and it tries to dynamically show and hide elements to maximize what you need to see. And we'll dig into a couple of other little settings there too. So really allows you to kind of lay your meters out just the way you want, change the colors, the look and feels, and get some really customized meters for what you're working on. Cool feature that is a little bit of a subtle and hidden one is that you can rescale your meters. So you can change the scaling. This works in the bridge or in the meter itself. So if you see the scale on the side here, the 0 at the top, and right now we have a -60. If we double click on that, it will show 0 to -infinity, and you can just click on any one of these elements and you can start moving them. So I'm dragging -40 down to the bottom. And then I can even take, say, -20 and I can drag it a little bit there. So that allows me to get more resolution, at a different piece of the screen. So if I'm really interested in things from 0 to -20, I can move that -20 down. If I'm not interested in anything below -40, I can move it all the way down to the bottom. We're still showing the signal present indicator, so if anything's below 40, it's still going to light from -40 all the way down to -infinity. So again, you just double click to reset, and then you just grab one and drag it, and it will resize here. We can do the same thing on the bridge. We'll grab -40 and move that down, and then we'll grab 20 and move that down there. So really helpful to kind of maximize what you're seeing and focus in on the ranges of the meters that you're most interested in. Another really great feature in the massive meter bridge is something called meter linking. So the way meter linking works is if you click on the nameplate here, you'll have a little pop-up that comes up, and you'll have a little double meter. And so if you click on the double meter, what it shows is any of the meters of the same format. So I clicked on background, and it's 7-1, so it shows all my other 7-1s. I'm going to click on record background, and it will show the two meters interlaced together. And one of the other things you can do is you can kind of change our color coding here. So there's my background and there's my record background. I'm going to change those and make it a little easier to read. You basically see the channels, the left, left, center, center, right, right, going across. So this is really a great feature you can use for what's sometimes called PEC direct style metering, and you can take and link the meters. You can even link them across different systems. So if you've got a player system and then you've got a recorder system, you can link the two as long as the meters are the same format, and then you can meter kind of what's coming out of the player and what's going into the recorder, and see that they're still in sync and see that they are metering the same amount and not losing any signal going across whatever your connection is between those two systems. You can rename, so if we click on the meter label and then click on the T, we can rename, we're going to just call this BG for background. So we can take those two, instead of having one really long concatenated name, you can call it BG and see your backgrounds there. And if we want to go back to what the original name is, similar to the custom name in the plugin, you just delete it and it remembers back to your original meter there. You can also link multiple meters together if we've done two here. So I can add in other meters, and we can link as many as we want and see a whole bunch of them all next to either. So you see all your lefts, your centers, and rights just next to each other. And to unlink them, you just go in and uncheck them. So in the massive meter bridge, you saw me clicking here on the label of the meter. It allows you to do things like rename the meter. You can reveal a paint bucket, which will allow you to change the colors of your meters, and you can do linking. On the system view, you can also show all the meters that are connected to that one system, and you can just simply click here to show and hide these meters. There's also a view menu. You can show and hide individual systems if you don't want to see your effects. We can hide that guy. We can bring it back, and we can show and hide the individual plugins from each of the systems. And this is really helpful if you're running a multi-user mix stage and you have, say, a sound effects, a music, and a dialogue mixer. Each of them can run their own version of the massive meter bridge, and they can customize what they see. They can do this from templates, or you can do this in configuration, but you can show and hide each of the individual meters. And so if you want to really just focus in on what your effects meters are doing, but you want to you still want to be able to see a couple of the music meters. Maybe you link them together and then hide the ones that are not linked. It allows you to kind of customize your view. Of course, we can do things like dragging and dropping. So if you click on the nameplate, we can drag and drop to move the systems around. We can drag and drop to move any of the meters around. So if they didn't come up in the order that you wanted them, or you want to change the order, you just drag and drop those. The meters do come up in what we call plugin instantiation order. So it's typically from top to bottom in the Pro Tools edit window, or left to right in the mix window. But if you kind of you de-instantiate a meter and you reinstantiate it, it will show up at the end, and you'll have to kind of reorganize them. So a lot of things we can do to kind of customize our view. We can move things around, drag and drop, and we can rename, we can recolor, we can do linking, and similar to what we were seeing in the settings in the massive meter, we also have those same settings here in the massive meter bridge. There are a couple of other options in the meter bridge that aren't available in the meter plugin. We have an always on top, a use small header. That allows you to basically kind of take this big white header bar and shrink that down a little smaller and then make it float on top. You do have to close and reopen the... There we go. So we closed and reopened, and you saw how fast that brought our meters back. And now if I kind of float this guy on top of Pro Tools, I'm going to hide the plugins there, and I can really squish this down quite a bit. And I can float it right on top, so I have a bridge going across there, and all the same features work. We can double click, we can drag, do all those things to see exactly what I want. Okay, so we're going to switch that back. There we go. So it just closed and reopened, and it reset the header bar and the always on top, so I can bring Pro Tools in front. What I'm looking at here is what I call standard view, and so this basically groups the meters by the system. So we've got all my effects meters, all my music meters, my VST3. And so, if I'm dragging and dropping, they don't let me kind of drag and drop them across the systems. And if I want to really squish, kind of maximize my user interface and squish down kind of things that I don't necessarily care about, we can do what is called the universe view. What the universe view does is it removes kind of the system grouping and it hides the system name. And so we can also change things like the number of rows of meters. So here we're in universe view, so we don't see the system. You can kind of still see it up here under the view menu, and you can show and hide each individual system or the plugins on each of them. Makes it just a little bit of cleaner, more condensed view. One of the other things you can do when you're in universe view is you can move the plugins anywhere in the view. They're not restricted based on what system they belong in. So when you, depending on if you're in standard view or the system view, you can change the number of rows, how they're laid out. So we're currently seeing one row of meters, and I can change this. We'll show 3 rows of meters, and so it lays them out this way. And we can still do things like we'll move all my music ones down here. There we go. So just allows you to kind of show what the, kind of group your meters in specific ways. So if you're in the universe view, you get to pick the number of rows from 1 row up to 5 rows. And then if you are in kind of the standard view, you can basically pick whether you want to have 1 system per row or if you want to have one row in its entirety. So we're going to do that. We're going to switch. There we go. So we're back in standard view because we see the system name here, FX, Music, VST3, and then the core audio. And I'm switching between the universe view and not universe view. There is a shortcut for toggling universe view. That's just Command U. You can find it under the view menu. It says toggle universe view. And so you can just quickly toggle in between universe view So you can kind of see those system names and show and hide things really easily if you want. So we're going to go back to kind of just our standard view of seeing one row of meters. In the plugin, if you look in the upper left-hand corner, you'll see a little magnifying glass and you'll see a little double meter. So what those do is those basically help control the massive meter bridge to zoom in on a specific meter. So if you click on the plus sign here, it basically tells the bridge, hey, zoom in and show me that specific track, that 7/1 track, and then you can click out and it will zoom out. So on any plugin, you just quickly zoom in on any one of those guys. If you're running on the bridge, you can do zooming. You just double click on the meter to zoom in, double click to zoom back out. So if you need to see a specific meter for a second to see what's going on, you just double click and you'll zoom in and out. The magnifying glass, it either shows a plus or a minus to show which one is the zoomed in one. So if you're running the massive meter bridge on a separate computer like a Mac Mini, it's a really easy way to quickly zoom in on a plugin without having to go and grab the mouse or the keyboard on that other computer. The double meter here, what this shows is this is a feature called crashdown, and it allows you to take a multi-channel meter, so like 7/1 music, which is, there it is, 7/1 music. There it is right there. If you take 7/1 music, and it allows you to take that and basically crash that down to a mono meter. So if we click on this, it'll become a little single meter bar, and you'll see now I've got a mono meter here for my 7/1 music. This is a really helpful feature. If, again, you're kind of working on, either multiple systems or you've got a really big Pro Tools session with, hundreds of tracks in it, and you kind of want to know what's happening, say, on your music, but you really don't care what's happening on, say, all 7/1 of those meters, but you just want to know that, one of them's lit up. You can use crashdown to do that, and what it does is it looks across all the different channels and it figures out which one has the maximum, and that's what it displays. So if your center channel is, really has most of the signal in it, it'll display your center channel there. So simple, just click on the little double meter and it'll switch it. So if you're in the massive meter bridge and you want to take any of the specific multi-channel meters and crash them down, you can do an option double click and on any of the meter bars, and it will crash it down just like that, and it will show in the meter plugin here which ones are crashed. Of course, you can also do crashing and zooming at the same time if you really want to see that one guy there, so we can view that same meter there. So let's take a quick look at metering core audio devices. Under Setup, you'll find the audio device settings, and so when you bring that up, you'll see a dialog similar to the Pro Tools I/O setup, and this is where you can configure your meters for a specific core audio device. Then you can save them as preferences files and quickly switch between them. So I've got a whole bunch of different preferences that I can toggle between. Quite a few different settings here. We can change what the display name is, and this is what's going to show up in the system name at the top of the meter. We can pick any of our core audio devices out there. So I'm currently pointing to my cinema display. I've got a Mac Ionix 2x2 here, my MacBook microphone. Of course, we have the Dolby Audio bridge, and then we have the Pro Tools aux bridges. So if you configure the aux I/O in Pro Tools, you can select any of those. So any core audio device, it'll find it out here. We've also got, I think, a Dante Virtual Sound Card down here, so you can meter what's coming off the Dante Virtual Sound Card. You can set sample rate and buffer size that you're going to talk to that, and then you can create custom meters here. So you can kind of create however many meters that you want and name them. On my display, there's only a single input, so it shows it right here. But I could create a few different ones if I wanted to. We'll call this display 1. We'll call this display 2 and display 3. They're currently set up to be monos, but we can change them to various other formats. And so this basically allows you to kind of change how you see your meter data and create custom meters for that. So if you've got 64 channels coming in on Pro Tools, Aux.io, you can create 1 or 64 meters or whatever combination and map the channels of the meters. So here the left and right, we can map them to the channels on the core audio device. So here in the audio device settings, I've picked the Pro Tools Audio Bridge 16, and then I did default, which created 16 meters that are all mono. I can pick this one to be, say, stereo, and I'm going to pick this one to be a 5.1. And if you just click, it will drop in the default channels right there. So I'm going to have overlapping meters. I'm going to have a left-right on channel 1, 2, and then on channel 2 through 8, I'm going to have my 5.1, and then over here I'm going to have my center one. So you can easily customize those just as you want, and we'll save that as a template, and then we'll get to see our meters here show up on the side here.